A for loop is a loop like a while loop. It does something for a number of times, but instead of a condition, a conditional statement there that evaluates an expression that evaluates to true or false, what we have in a for loop is a set, a list, a group. It's a number of things. And what happens in a for loop is it does the loop, but each time it does the loop, it's going to take a value from this list and it's going to put it in this variable. And it will do them in order. So this list is a range 0 to 6. Whenever you see the range function here, the range, it creates a list on the fly that includes the numbers between 0 and 6, not inclusive of 6. This will make sense in just a minute. And for every time we go through this loop, it will go through in order those values in that list and put them in X and then do whatever the code block says with X as that value. So it's like lining up people to take turns to do something. Let's jump into the code right now and take a look. For X in range 0, 6, print the value of X. Okay, that's what we just saw. For each X in the range 0 to 6, print the value of X. So let's run that. And what we have is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because what it does is X on the first one is equal to 0, prints it out, goes around the loop, chooses the next value from that list, prints it out, and so on. Now, why doesn't it print 6? Because a range, when you use the range function, it stops at the whole value right before the top one. So if I put a 0 to 6 range, it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 does not include 6. That's just a peculiarity of the range function, and that's all it is. Yes, let's just try it. 7, put 7 in there, stops at 6. If I put 200, it will stop at 199. Okay? And just like that, I can do things like if X mod 2 equals 0, equals 0, I'm asking, not telling, then print X. What's this going to print for me? What does modulus do? What was it? The remainder. It returns the remainder after the division. So if the remainder, if I take X, divide it by 2, and the remainder is 0, what does that make X? Close. An even number, because only even numbers are divisible by 2 evenly. So this will print all of the even numbers between 0 and 200. Boom. Just like that. So you can do some really powerful things. That's 3 lines of code to generate that really quickly. So you can do some very powerful things with a for loop. And each time it loops through, it's giving X a new value for that whole code block. Okay? So when we are looking at a for loop, another way to write that same thing, by the way, is range 6. If I put range 6, it will assume starting at 0. So if I put range 200, it will count from 0 to 199. Just another shorthand that I'd mention. There's an actual easier way to do this, though. If I want to, instead of doing all of this work, I could have just said this, because range takes a third argument, and that third argument is called the step, meaning how many will it increment each time as it creates the range. So what this says is create a range from 0 to 200 using every two numbers. So now I can do the same thing with 2 lines of code, or I could count by fives. Notice where it stops, 195. It will stop at whatever the whole number is prior to the highest end of the range. So if the range ends at 200, 195 is the next multiple of 5 below that. That's why it stops at 195. It can't stop at 199 because that's not a multiple of 5. That's it. Because it can't go to 205, but it can go to 200 and still be less than 200. I mean 201. So yeah, that was a good question though. It just has to be higher. No, there is no limit. You just took the blue pill right there. You didn't even know it. But that's not all, folks. It's not just for counting. Look, man, it killed me with those smart quotes again. I told you guys about those. And my PowerPoint, or Keynote rather, is trying to help me out. It's trying to make me look good by changing everything to smart quotes, but it doesn't know that I am going to use that code. So kind of messed me up. But check this out. So I created a variable called fruits. Now, you've never seen this data type before, but we're going to get into this really soon. And I just want to give you a little preview of this ability that we have. I can create a list, put it all inside one variable, and I can use the for loop to go through and print them out. So I could say print f string, my favorite fruit is X. And I can use those. I can put those words right in here. So you can do some really cool stuff. And guess what you can do with list variables? You can take user input and add that to the end of a list. So you can start working with groups of data and collections of data. This is going to get really exciting really quick. But we won't get into lists, I think, until the week after next, if I'm remembering properly. It's shortly, but not immediate.